Ayurveda, first off, is called the science of life. A lot of people call it the life knowledge or life science. And it is a science of balance. Okay, so you're looking for someone's imbalances, which is their symptoms. It's a symptomatic approach to health. You're looking at someone's symptoms emotionally or physically. You're adding that up to see where they stand or what they're really experiencing. And then you're going in and you're playing the balancing act for them. You're supporting them in finding a better balance. So that's really going to be the baseline of this science of life, is to be able to recognize that there's something going on, stop, address it, connect to it, figure out what it is. And there's multiple ways to do that. It would be vata pitta kapha, or it's hot, or it's cold, or it's wet, or it's dry. You figure out a little bit about what it's telling you, because, symptoms are just communication, and it's not out of the blue. It's not out of the blue communication. It's a clear connection. What you emotionally and physically are experiencing is just your mind and body communicating with you, trying to tell you exactly what it needs, and it gives you a negative so that you can turn it into a positive, and if something's positive, it doesn't need to tell you, So sometimes you have to make sure you talk about positives in Ayurveda, and not just the negatives. Sometimes it can seem very like a negative. And then all of a sudden the person's like, man, I'm so messed up. And I have to be like, wait a minute. Actually, your heart and your lungs are really healthy. I'm just focusing on your kidneys because you're dry. But your heart and your, lungs, you've been doing so well with those, And so you have to remember to kind of play that out a little. And that's very natural in this science. And, this medicine really goes back a long way. I mean, more than even 25,000 years ago. But basically 25,000 years ago is when there was a clear picture of a doctrine of health and someone in a community who held elemental knowledge and was able to see imbalances or smell imbalances or recognize them energetically, and had the ability to say, this is how we're going to turn it around. And that's when this science really started becoming in a text form, a written form. And at that timeline, it was all, up until then, it was all in mantras and truths and concepts that were more being designed in religions. So it was a multiple of religions that actually do make up this medicine, and a lot of the spiritualism came from those spiritual faiths and became a foundation for, having a clear understanding of yourself, and having faith that things can change in yourself, or having faith that whatever you're going through is what you're supposed to be going through. The reason for everything kind of idea. And then, really when you open up a book, it usually says, it's very common that you'll read 6,000 years ago. This science was developed 6,000 years ago. So I just went way past that, right? So 6,000 years ago is when they took the Charaka Samhitas and they took the Ashtanga Hriayams, which are two very amazing encyclopedias of Ayurveda. And they started making it into a cohesive medical science. So 6,000 years ago is when they started doing surgical procedures and putting people under through pressure points instead of anesthesia, and then doing surgery on them, and started bringing in all the anatomy and physiology and opening up, cadavers and following nerve lines, and just really started putting this whole philosophy into a anatomy physiology practice, and wrote down everything from the original texts, and then started making it into what we know as Ayurveda now. So that's basically where you get that 6,000 years ago, which is kind of the most common I see. But, it'll vary huge, which is why I'm giving you this variable timeline, because you'll open up one book and they'll be like 15,000, the other one said 6,000, that one says 25,000. And really that's just the natural, development of this medicine, and those were very specific times that marked Ayurveda in its growth.